What's going on, CLC? It's Pastor Carl here, and I can't believe we're already at Easter, and it's my pleasure to be with you today. Today I want to read to you this passage from Matthew 21 that happened during the Holy Week, the moments leading up to Jesus' crucifixion. So Jesus entered the temple courts, and while he was teaching, the chief priests and the elders of the people, they came to him, and they said, "By what authority are you doing these things? And who gave you this authority?" And Jesus replied, "I'll also ask you one question. If you answer me, I'll tell you by what authority I'm doing these things. John's baptism, where did it come from? Was it from heaven or of human origin?" They discussed it among themselves, and they said, "If we say from heaven, he'll ask us, then why didn't you believe him? But if we say of human origin, we're afraid of the people because everyone believes that John was a prophet." And so they answered Jesus, "We don't know." Then he said, "Neither will I tell you by what authority I am doing these things." The placement of this conversation is anything but accidental. It's coming hot off the heels of some bold claims and actions made by Jesus. And that's why the Pharisees at the time were asking Jesus this question: by whose authority are you doing these things? Much like any one of us would ask somebody who is in our house telling us what to do. Us humans love our autonomy. It's our right to decide for ourselves what is right and what's wrong. And so when our autonomy is threatened by the authority of others, we question their authority with absolute bias. Luckily for us, most people who disagree with us either don't have the authority to make us change, or if they do, they lack the ability to make us change. And here's the thing, though, about the claims that Jesus made about himself and the actions that he took that demonstrated that authority, is that they don't just elicit a response from us, they force one from us. If what Jesus says about himself is true, then he has the authority to tell me what is acceptable and what is not. And what do we do with such a realization? Well, the reality is either we crucify him or we crown him. Either I maintain my autonomy to decide what is right and wrong, or I submit it to Jesus. Now I know what you're thinking. You've been a disciple of Jesus for years. You've crowned him king years ago. You crown him king every day. But what I want you to do today is consider that the Pharisees of the time, they also believed that they had crowned God as king. Where God sat in the order of their priorities wasn't the issue. It's where he sat in their heart that mattered, because the throne of our hearts, it has room only for one. You can always tell who's really sitting on the throne of your heart, not just by how easily you're offended at the claims of Jesus, but by how hard it is to elicit an answer from Jesus. For example, the Pharisees, they asked Jesus a simple question. And if we're being honest, it's the same question that we would ask him. Whose authority are you coming to do these things, or to say these things, or to sit on the throne of our hearts? But Jesus knew the motive of their hearts, and he responded with a question. He said, "Did John's authority to baptize come from heaven, or was it merely human?" And it was such a clever question, because what he's doing is he's showing us the mental gymnastics that we all do when we avoid acting on the claims of lordship that Jesus makes over our lives. The Pharisees knew that no matter what they answered, they would be cornered. So they did what we all do when we're avoiding having to make a decision. They just pretended like they didn't know. They literally said, "We don't know." Why did they do this? Because they knew if they tell the truth, they'd be corrected. But if they lied, they'd be called out. So what's the easiest possible solution? Well, as long as you pretend like you don't know by whose authority Jesus speaks, you can act like you are still the rightful heir to the throne of your own heart. And I wonder in my own life how many times I've come to Christ with questions and prayers only to be met by more questions. I wonder how many times I've missed out on answers because I refuse to answer the questions being asked of me. If you've ever found yourself frustrated that you can't hear from God, could it be that there's an area of your life that's questioning Jesus' authority over it because it wants that authority for itself? So what's the solution? Pay careful attention to the claims of Jesus that offend me personally. Pay careful attention to the ones that I have to make excuses for, or that I have to explain to others why I don't obey them immediately. It's those moments that shine a light on the areas that I still question Jesus' authority over. But those are the moments that I have the opportunity to declare Christ as King over those areas and see his victory in. A happy Easter, CLC.